Happy Monday, Memphis Grizzlies fans. It's that time of the year again. Memphis Grizzlies Media Day is here, and we got a lot to talk about previewing Grizzlies Media Day, injury news, Eselo's moment, big man answers, and much more coming up on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Happy Monday to all, and welcome back to the best part of the year to me and probably to many of you, and that's basketball season. It's not quite there yet. We still got a couple weeks, about 3 weeks before the season officially tips off in official capacity, but today is Memphis Grizzlies Media Day, Monday, September 29th. The Grizzlies are now entering their camp phase. Everyone's checking in. To me, this is my fifth year on the beat, fifth season, but it'll be my fourth time at Grizzlies Media Day. And this always has a first day of school type of vibe to it, right? It's the first time you've seen a lot of people in a long time. The players they've been around or whatever, but now you get to settle in and you're here because what will happen from here is Monday's Grizzlies Media Day. Guys will go around taking all the photos and cool shots and all that good stuff. And then Tuesday, it's Nashville time. Tuesday practice in Nashville. And then you'll be in Nashville all the way through Friday. Saturday, you get back. Open practice for the fans at the FedEx Forum on Saturday. So if you're in Memphis or you're around Memphis, go check out open practice. I always think it's a good vibe, good time being there. And then Monday, next Monday, the Grizzlies will tip off preseason action at home at FedEx Forum. So we're off and running now. It's time for the good things. It's time for all the great news. But before we get into all this, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com now to get started. Speaking of get started, the Grizzlies are about to get started, and with the Grizzlies getting started, we got to start this episode focusing on the injury front because that's the most recent news, and that's going to be even relevant. Again, that news will continue to be relevant for many more weeks to come as we get to talk about the timelines of some of these injuries, but it's also going to be very much relevant at Media Day. So after Friday's episode, it was about Friday at around, I want to say 2:30 p.m. or so, the Grizzlies issued what they call a medical update, and 4 players were listed in that update. The 4 players that were listed: Cedric Coward, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr. In the case of Cedric Coward, we kind of knew what that would be, but we got a little bit more clarity with 3 other players there. Starting with Cedric Coward, we can start with him first. The Grizzlies basically came out and said Cedric Coward is expected to be a full participant in training camp following the completion of his rehab of a left shoulder injury that was sustained while he was in college at Washington State. Again, we talked to Cedric Coward recently. I said here on the show that he's expected to be 100%. So that's that. That is the Cedric Coward news front. And oh, by the way, I mean, many of you know this already, but as we get into Media Day on Monday, make sure you go over to X at Damichael C. You'll have my updates will be on there. If you're not really onto the social media thing, that's cool. Head over to the commercialappeal.com. That's where all of my written content, all of my videos will be posted on commercialappeal.com from Media Day, talking to all the players, and we'll have extensive breakdown and coverage all throughout the day. And then, of course, again, with you tomorrow on Locked On Grizzlies. But now continue moving forward with the players, right? We talked about Cedric Coward. That was the expected news. With the other 2 players that I want to mention here, there are 3 more players, but 2 that I want to group together: Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. In both of these cases, I think the good news was that we got an expected time that they'll return to play. A lot of times you got to read the fine print when these medical updates come out with these NBA teams. And a lot of times what you'll hear is a player is to be reevaluated in X amount of days or X amount of weeks. And when that's the case, that's not when they're expected to return. That's basically when you're going to get another update on that player's status. But in the case of Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr., the Grizzlies issued updates that basically said these players are expected to return to play in this time frame. Starting with Jaren Jackson Jr., the Grizzlies basically said after his procedure, now he's expected to return in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that's where we are with Jaren Jackson Jr. If you go by the date right now, September 29th on this Monday, 4 to 6 weeks. 4 weeks puts you exactly 2 days before the regular season opens. 4 weeks is October 20th from today. And then October 22nd is when the Grizzlies open the season at home, open the regular season at home against the New Orleans Pelicans. So I think it's safe to say Jaren Jackson Jr. is somewhat a long shot for the first game of the season. But the good news here is kind of what we felt all along, and I think what Jaren's kind of been alluding to, saying that he expects to hear some good news, when this is all said and done. And the good news in this situation is worst case scenario, Jaren's going to miss the first 5-6 games of the season. That seems like that would be the worst case scenario. Again, it says return to play. It doesn't say reevaluate. So we're talking about when he gets on the floor. So exactly 4 weeks from now is a couple days before the regular season. So if everything is just going, substantially well, there is a chance that he could be ready for the season opener. So there is that. But again, we'll talk to Zach Kleiman, we'll talk to Jan, we'll talk to all those people involved to get more clarity on that situation. And then there's Zach Edey. If you watched the last episode of Locked On Grizzlies, we talked about Zach Edey's injury. And my bold prediction was that he would be back before December. Again, it wasn't really a huge intel thing, but part of that was based on the fact that I haven't heard anything bad regarding Zach Edey. Trust me, there have been times when Grizzlies players have been injured, and I hear things like, we'll see. That happens. But in the case of Zach Edey, everything's been positive, and it led me to believe, you know what? He's not going to miss too much time. And in the case of Zach Edey, it's a little bit longer than Jaren. The Grizzlies said he's expected to return to play in 6 to 9 weeks. Now, the 6 to 9 week time frame, if you go from now, that puts you somewhere between 6 weeks from now is about November 10th. And then 9 weeks puts you right at where I said, which was December 1st. So anywhere in that range, you basically got early November to the beginning of December is when Zach Edey is expected to return. Hopefully it's closer to the November 10th, the 6 week time frame there. But that's good news to me. That is good news. Zach Edey continues to be, progressing well. It's going to be it's going to be something that we monitor throughout training camp, because training camp at this point, trust me, it's not just about the Grizzlies players that are going to be out there practicing with their teammates, getting up and down. It's going to be about Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, and those guys and the way they progress. There's one more guy that we got to talk about, and that's Brandon Clarke. Now, if you remember on a recent episode of Locked On Grizzlies, I gave a Brandon Clarke update. And he was talking about the PCL injury, and he said, I feel good. And at the time, Brandon Clarke said he expected, to be right out there with his team, to be a full go, and all of those good things. Well, as the great Lee Corso used to say, not so fast, my friend, because Brandon Clarke was the only one where when I saw the news, I wasn't encouraged by it. Everyone else, yes, Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. are going to miss time, but given the circumstances, given the injuries, you're going to get both of those guys back to me in enough time to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish this season. Now, with that being said, with Brandon Clarke, here's what the Grizzlies said. They said he's fully healed from a high-grade right PCL sprain that was sustained on March 19th. So he is fully healed from the PCL injury. So I want to throw that out there. I want to make sure we're very clear on that. He is fully healed from the PCL injury. And then the Grizzlies came out and said, basically, in connection with some recent offseason training, he's experienced he experienced some pain in his right knee. And it's going to require an arthroscopic procedure to address it. So his return to play will approximately, here's the way the Grizzlies said it, his return to play timeline will be announced following the procedure, but a full recovery is expected. Brandon Clarke's about to miss a lot of time. And we don't know how much time that will be, but it's going to be a while. We're talking, I think, I've been hearing things like six or so weeks before potentially being reevaluated. I'll have more information on this tomorrow, as I'll do one of those stories where I talk to the sports doctors and they kind of give you more information, kind of peeling back the layers of what the injury is. But this is not encouraging news. I wanted to get all the encouraging stuff out the way before we get to the Brandon Clarke news. Someone like Brandon Clarke, who's an athletic big, who has been through an Achilles injury, who's just had this PCL sprain. His knees are a huge part of his foundation as a player. He is a great leaper. He's a great rim runner. He has extremely good mobility for a big. A lot of times you see the Grizzlies over the course of the last few years close games with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark on the floor, in part because Brandon Clark is one of the more mobile bigs in the league. And you pair him with Jaren Jackson Jr., you have the ability to just switch everything. Now I'm starting to wonder, because Brandon Clark's having knee problems. Is he going to come back as mobile as we've seen him be over the course of the years? Is he still going to be able to be that rim running threat in this system with Tomas Eselo that's going to get him back, to me, playing more to his strengths? Again, I've talked about how in the past, Brandon Clark was one of those guys who I felt could really thrive in this new system as they start to unpack it and really, give a better indication of what some of the, the emphasis will be. But the fact that they're going to get back to setting more on ball screens, getting back to having their bigs roll to the rim a little bit more and things like that, that pretty much is Brandon Clark's game offensively. That is a huge part of his offensive game. So Brandon Clark is the one question mark on here. And considering you're missing Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. already in front court, we're going to save that topic. We're going to talk about that later on in the show about this big situation. But the Brandon Clark injury, to me, is what we call a big problem. It's a big problem for the Grizzlies, and we'll see, again, how they address it. And we'll talk to them in media day. We'll get more, kind of information and background on what this situation will look like going forward. Speaking of what the situation will look like going forward, we got to talk about new Grizzlies head coach, Tomas Eselo. He's now officially taken over in his first full season as the Grizzlies head coach. We're going to talk about that coming up here on Locked on Grizzlies. But before we get to that, before we talk about the new man in charge, today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. They're big taste, tiny shots. You can take it anywhere and get that boost whenever you need it. I mean, it doesn't take long. You get that boost whenever you need it, whether you're on the road, whether you're at work, whether you're just not a morning person. You can get it wherever you need it. And then they have great flavors. Look, the flavors are great. All the flavors stick out to me. I love a lot of the flavors, and they're very refreshing. And I'm telling you, they don't taste bad at all. So make sure you go take advantage of these opportunities. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. A lot of y'all like that flavorless caffeine. You need to come over here. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. www.5hourenergy.com, or you can buy on Amazon today. Make sure you go take advantage of that opportunity now with 5 Hour Energy. Welcome back to Locked on Grizzlies, where we got to talk about the head man, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, Tomas Eselo. And what I want to talk about in this segment is Eselo's moment, because that's where we are now. Sure, last season, I mean, he deserved the grace. It's very rare in the NBA that you see a coach take over with 9 games in the season and then have to go, to Golden State for a play-in game, and then, have to, take on what we saw, the NBA champions, the eventual NBA champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, in the first round of the playoffs. And then, of course, Ja gets hurt in series. You don't have Brandon Clark, whatever. Injuries are no excuse. But the point is, it was a tough situation to kind of grade Eselo on. But now, all this out the window. It's his time now. You got the full off season to just unpack, reevaluate what you like about this roster, what you want to change about this roster. We've seen the touches of the Grizzlies starting to implement some things, from a roster structure standpoint, that'll be more catered to what we feel like Eselo will want to do. Going out to get a big like Jock Landale, big screen setter, rugged big. Going out to get, physical wings defensively. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Jamal Meshack in the draft. Cedric Coward with his wingspan and his upside. There's clearly a focus on shifting some things here and giving, Thomas Eselo a chance to kind of put his own identity on this Grizzlies roster. But what I want to see at Media Day from him is, how does he own the moment? How does Thomas Eselo own the moment? He's the Grizzlies head coach. Over the years, we hear head coaches come out at Media Day. And one of the things I want to look for in the case of Eselo is he's the guy now. This is his team. This is what I'm going to command from my team. This is what I want to see from my team. But even more than that, the number one thing, we've talked about this a lot over the summer. What is he going to say about the schematic changes? Offensively, there's going to be some differences, clearly. But you don't have Desmond Bane as a secondary creator anymore. What does that situation look like? Are you going to demand more out of Jaren Jackson Jr. As a creator? Because he's going to create a lot for himself. He's going to have the opportunity to be a better playmaker for his teammates. Ja Morant's going to have those opportunities. Look, I'm not worried about Ja Morant's playmaking at all. Zero. That's probably the least of my worries, and probably even less than his scoring. Ja Morant is a terrific playmaker. But when it comes to his teammates, you got Scottie Pippen Jr., who has his moments where he's a very good playmaker, but at times, as the numbers will show, Scottie Pippen Jr. can turn the ball over from time to time. A guy like Ty Jerome, he's going to probably get a higher, usage percentage in Memphis, right? He's going to get more opportunity to play probably on the ball, more opportunity as a secondary playmaker. How does he take advantage of those opportunities? Because going back to his days at Virginia, that was pretty much the last time where he was fully in a role where he was the primary ball handler. In Cleveland, yeah, he had some of that, but not high assist numbers in particular, because he wasn't asked to be the primary guy in that role. So I want to see what that looks like, right? What is the plan for the bigs? You're probably going to start the season without Jaren. You're probably going to start the season without Zach Edey. Well, you're definitely going to start the season without Zach Edey. But what is the plans in order to overcome that? But just the identity on the offensive end too, that is something I want to pay attention. Then it's defensively. Again, we talked about it here a few times. Taylor Jenkins, and I really don't care how people feel about this. It's just the truth. Taylor Jenkins wasn't a bad defensive coach. He wasn't a bad defensive coach. You can argue at times was what we saw Rui Hachimura do in the playoffs when the Grizzlies were leaving him open and he started making all those threes. Or we saw some games where Herb Jones did that. We saw some games where Derrick Jones, and the list goes on. There were several times where the Grizzlies said, that guy can't shoot three-pointers. He's shooting 28, 29, 31% from three-point range. Leave him open. If he beats us, so be it. And while I don't think that's a terrible strategy, there's this thing called, these guys are professionals for a reason. And a lot of times you leave a professional who practices those shots, is they're not taking shots that they don't practice. Herb Jones, Derrick Jones, Rui Hachimura, as we've seen over the course of the years, those guys can make the shots. And the Grizzlies basically gave them practice shots a lot of times. And that's just three players that came off the top of my head, but there are many more players on that list. Where the Grizzlies would basically use Jaren Jackson Jr. as a roamer, and the guy that he would be guarding, have at it. If you have a career day from three-point range, you just do it. If you don't, we're going to end the night with a great defensive rating. But that's just a small part of the Grizzlies defense, and that's the part that many people probably complained about. But the other parts of it, where the Grizzlies used to swarm you from the standpoint of they wanted to make the three-point shots that you take low percentage three-point shots, which by the numbers those shots were, and then they wanted you to keep you out of their paint. And they were very good at that in the Taylor Jenkins tenure. And as a result, if you go back to over the course of his time, the Grizzlies had 4 top 10 defenses in 6 seasons. 4 top 10 defenses. I think it's three top 10 defenses, but 4 top 12 defenses. I think the only years where the Grizzlies did not have top 10 defenses, Taylor Jenkins' first season, where I think they finished 15th, and last season, not this past season, 2 seasons ago, excuse me. Those are only 2 years they didn't have top 10 defenses. I was right. It was 4 out of the last 6. Because this past season, they actually did finish 10th. It just doesn't feel like the Grizzlies were a top 10 defense last year. But by the numbers, at the end of the year, they were. Now, if you go first half of the season where they were top 5, second half of the season where they ranked in the 20s, then that kind of leads you to the way we feel. But at the end of the day, the Grizzlies had a defense over the course of Taylor Jenkins' tenure that was strong, that was steady, that played a huge role in them, in the Grizzlies becoming, a consistent playoff threat. Now you got a new coach. What will he emphasize? What will this defensive scheme look like? Will we see more switching? Will we see more drop coverage? Will we see, this what will this look like? What will this look like? I'm very intrigued by the possibilities. We talked about a lot about the offense, but the Grizzlies have kind of overhauled this coaching staff. That's another thing. When we talk to Eselo, it's going to be an opportunity where he can talk about his assistants, what their roles are going to be, what we expect from these new assistant coaches in their roles. It's a brand new assistant coaching staff for the most part, a couple, holdovers or whatever. But Thomas Eselo, this is your moment. This is his moment as the Grizzlies head coach. He's stepping in. From my conversations with him, I think confident guy. I think he's a guy who has a good pulse of this roster. I think the players respond to him, and we're going to get more answers. We're going to get more answers as we talk to him at Media Day as well. Another thing that I want to get some answers on is this front court with these bigs. We got to talk about that next, coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we talk about the big situation, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Make sure you go take advantage of that. You ask me what I love about FanDuel. I like a lot of things about FanDuel. Look, it makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. So if you're not betting on your teams, you bet on some other teams, it makes you become a fan of other teams, other players, or probably not like other teams, other players. But whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Well, visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and make sure you go get started again. That's FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app today to go get started. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, where we got to talk about the big man situation in Memphis. Now, here's kind of the rundown, right? We've talked about it in the show so far. Jaren Jackson Jr., decent chance he's not going to be available beginning of the season. First game of the season, at least. Decent chance he's not going to be available for that. Then you go past Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey is not going to be available at the beginning of the season. Brandon Clark is not going to be available at the beginning of the season. So that's your starting center. That's your backup center. So now you're going to have to play your backup to the backup center. And in a regular season scenario, I believe that Jaren Jackson Jr. is your third center, so to speak. Like in a situation where, Brandon Clark and Zach Edey are in foul trouble, the Grizzlies are more likely to slide Jaren Jackson Jr. over to the 5, throw Santi in the game, or then Santi comes out, have a small ball 4, with the Gigi Jackson, John Conchars of the world, etc. But in the situation that the Grizzlies are in now, Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably not going to be available. Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Santi's going to play. Santi Aldama is going to play or not. We know that. We know he's going to play a lot. But what else is going to happen? Jock Landale seems to be the automatic answer. I think we're looking at a situation where Jock Landale could now be a starter for the Memphis Grizzlies to begin the season. That is a very realistic expectation. But the other thing that I want to see is I want to see what Zach Kleiman's going to say about it. What is the Grizzlies general manager going to say about this big situation? This is not something the team expected. And quite frankly, it's a tough situation because the Grizzlies like their roster. They like the roster. They have a very solid 1 through 15 with this roster. Again, you got John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. at the top. And I think it's the middle where it's a little fuzzy, so to speak. You don't know who the third best player is going to be at this point of the season. Some people will say, it's going to be Santi. Some will say Zach Edey. Some will say Jalen Wells. Some will say Cedric Coward. The list goes on. But we don't know definitively who's going to be the third best player on this team. But we get past that. You have so many players, as I just named a few of them. Then you got the Scottie Pippen Jr.'s of the world. You got the Brandon Clarks when he's healthy. You got the Gigi Jacksons. Like, there are so many other players who Ty Jerome might be the third best player on the team. But you got so many players who are in the conversation as who can be productive, strong, rotational players for the Grizzlies, this team has a lot of depth. But with all that depth, now you're in a situation where the Grizzlies might need to go get another big because behind Jock Landale is your two-way, PJ Hall. And I've seen PJ Hall now. He's roughly about 6'8", 6'9". And I think even himself, when he was describing kind of his role a little bit, and I want to paraphrase because I don't want to get his role his words mixed up, but he talked about being a small ball five and being a bigger guy who can play the four and things like that. So you're basically at this point where Jock Landale is your only five who's going to be available at the beginning of the season, who has sort of the size that you want to command at the position. Because Santi hasn't been ready to play the five for the last couple of years. And maybe they just got to say, you know what? Screw it. We got to throw Santi at the five. But from a height standpoint, he can hang. But the physicality has been too much for the Grizzlies to even put him there much over the last two seasons. At one point, they flirted with it, nibbled and dabbled, but it ain't been happening much lately. So the center situation now is a problem. It is a problem, but it's one I'm really intrigued to see Zach Kleiman respond to how the Grizzlies plan to address that situation, because it's not as simple as, hey, we'll go get someone, because the roster's full and it's not easy to just move pieces like that. So we'll see, kind of what the Grizzlies plan, what their plan is in terms of the big situation. But speaking of the bigs, I got one more Zach Edey thing that I want to see at Media Day. And this could be some encouragement. Again, Zach Edey is still 6 to 9 weeks away from playing, but I still want to see if he's gotten stronger. Has this ankle injury limited his ability to get in the weight room and get stronger and become that physical player that he wants to be in NBA? If it has, he better really hit it these 6 to 9 weeks. If it hasn't, my plan is still on. Everything that I've said about Zach Edey being ranked in the top 100 players, well, ESPN already has him in there, but being a top 100 player, pretty much from a consensus standpoint, all of that is still within the possibility if he comes back as a stronger player. That is the big problem for Zach Edey. If you look at the way that Zach Edey played last season, over the course of the season, you saw a lot of highs. You saw some lows for sure. But the one thing that I keep going back to is go look at the Purdue tape. Go look at where he made a lot of his hook shots from. Right under the basket, a couple feet away. He buried those little guys, moved them under the basket, make an easy hook shot. With the Grizzlies, what you saw, especially early in the season, taking the same hook shots, right hand, left hand, turn around real quick, hook shots. But the depth was completely different from what we saw at the collegiate level. And that was just more of a product of it. In college, he's able to move guys at a will, get under the basket, turn around, drop the ball in the basket. At the NBA, there were times, it looked like he was about to shoot a free throw, how far out they pushed him on some of those hook shots, because it's not easy to move a Ivica Zubac. It's not easy to move Jonas Valanciunas or Nikola Jokic in these NBA centers, but that is the one thing that I want to see. That'll confirm to me everything I need to know about Zach Edey. The skill level, I believe in it enough to believe that he could be an impactful center, at this level. But from a physical standpoint, can he be imposing enough going into his second season and show, hey, bring those guys back here that may have, won the physical battle against me last year. Bring them back. I got something for them this year. If that's the mentality we're about to get from Zach Edey, sign me up. Sign me up. That's what I want to see. But NBA Media Day is here. We're excited. I keep saying NBA Media Day. It's Grizzlies Media Day. Some teams have already had their Media Days or whatever. A lot of times people focus on, some of the sound bites that you get, out of Media Days. I'm not expecting anything on the Grizzlies side to be some, overarching sound bite or whatever the case may be. But again, I'm going to say follow my coverage over on X at Damichael C, and then go over to the commercialappeal.com, where we'll have multiple stories breaking down everything that is said, everything that happens at Media Day, starting from General Manager Zach Kleiman down to the rookies and the newest players on the roster. Can't wait to talk to those guys. Can't wait to break it down with you guys tomorrow on Locked On Grizzlies. And I won't be breaking it down with you. My co-host will be breaking it down with you. Joe Mullinax will be here for that episode of Locked On Grizzlies. But remember that the Locked On NBA Top 100 is out. Many of you have already seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's voted on by the NBA host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by the experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You've seen me and Joe Momax's reaction, so make sure you go check out the Locked On NBA Top 100 as well. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Again, on tomorrow, you'll be with Joe Mullinax, who will break down what's said at NBA Media Day. Make sure you stay tuned with my coverage over at thecommercialappeal.com of everything from Media Day as well. But until next time, remember Locked On Grizzlies. That Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm about to head to Nashville. I'll be out in Nashville after Media Days, and I'll be out there with the team as they go through practices. So we're going to have you covered with that as well. Till next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you guys on Locked On Grizzlies.